So I want to show you a few more things related to setting up cinematics for your projects. Here we are in our or my Nakagami Capsule Tower example. I just imported that same blockout scene using Unreal Datasmith. And I just created an entirely new project to start using the VR template. So you could see I'm in that VR template map. I deleted everything except for the directional light. I left the sound asset in case I wanted to swap out a different audio clip. I left the player start, the nav mesh balance volume, the skylight, sky sphere, and player start, although the player start isn't super important in this case. What I want to do is create that cinematic sequence. In class, we covered how to set this up for VR. So hopefully you'll be able to occupy your VR scenes or your project scenes in VR without any problems. This tutorial is really geared on setting up your cinematics, right? So let's get started doing that. For one, I'm going to click on this movie clacker icon, which gets me to the cinematic options. And I'm going to drag a level sequence actor into my scene. This is something that I did in class as well. I have a cinematics folder that I created. Right now it's empty. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to cinematics and I'm going to add a level sequence. Again, this is repeat from class, ls underscore master. I'm going to go ahead and double click on that. What I might do is change my frame rate. If you want something to look film, pick filmic, set it to 24 frames per second. I'm going to set my master sequence to be 10 seconds long, so 720 frames, and I'm just going to drag this all the way out to 17. So now I have my kind of sequence and frame rate and shot length set up. If I go back to my content browser, what I might do is create another level sequence, and I can create as many of these as I have for the number of shots that I have. So I'm going to call this ls underscore. I'm going to call this follow cam. And this will be a spiraling shot that takes me up the stair. But maybe for this example, I'm going to show you a simplified version of that, just so you can see how this works. I'm going to open this level sequence, and I'm going to change this again to 24 frames per second. And if I wanted this, right now it's a 5-second shot. I might change this to 10 seconds. So I need change it in 40 frames. I can drag this out and put this out to 40. I'm just looking at this number here. So this little end bracket determines what that last frame is. I'm going to go back into my content browser. I still have my level sequence actor selected. And what I'm going to do is set here my master sequence, right? And so my master sequence is set, and now I can click open level sequence. And what that's going to do is open up this sequencer tab, which just gives me that timeline. Within this timeline, I can go ahead and add a shot track, and I can click on this plus icon, and whatever level sequence or level sequences I have, it's going to show up in this menu. I want that follow through, right? If I had more scenes, I can start dragging and dropping them in. So for instance, go back to my content browser, create another cinematic level sequence. I can take my follow through and I can hit Control V to duplicate it, so I can save myself completing some of those steps. And if you recall in class, I made like a get level sequence And so now I have a nugget level sequence. If I double click on that, it's already 24 frames per second because I duplicated it from the previous one. The time or the length of the sequence is 10 seconds. So I might want to change that. I'll go back to 120. So this is a 5 minute or sorry, 5 second nugget shot. And so then I can go back to my content browser. Going to open level sequence. I'm going to double click. Clicked on the open level sequence to open my master sequence. And now I can add another shot. And I could add my nugget shot. And I could say, okay, I want my nugget shot to come after this follow cam. Or maybe I want my nugget shot to come before that follow cam. I can start to use my master sequence to arrange and order the shots that I have. Okay. Let's say I want this to come later. So I'm going to do my follow cam first. And I'm going to open that follow cam. And now I can start editing what's in that original shot, right? I've got nothing in my scene right now, so I'm going to have to do a couple of things. If you recall, in the nugget shot, I added a camera, brought that camera into my level sequencer, and I started animating things like the focus distance and a little bit of its movement, just using the transform and adding some keys to the transform. What I'm going to do here is a little bit more sophisticated. I'm going to drag what's called the camera rig rail into my scene. If I hit F to focus, you can see it's like this little, you probably can't even tell. It'll be more obvious once I start expanding some of these elements, right? So I can grab these control points. I can hit Alt and drag additional control points, and I can move these control points. I can rotate these control points, and you can start to see what I'm doing is I'm creating a track that anything can follow. The camera rig rail operates on something called current positioning rail. It goes from 0 to 1, and it doesn't represent distance. It really represents the percentage of where I am in relation to the start. And so 0 is the starting point. And if I scrub this to 1, and 1 is the endpoint. So you could think about this as 0% to 100%. And if I'm at 25, I'm roughly at 50%, right? And now you can kind of see what this is doing. There's a little platform. You can imagine this little platform on wheels that is like riding these two rails. One thing that looks a little strange is that the platform is not, it's not changing its rotation. It's only changing its position along the spline. And the way we want, if we want to, and I think it makes some more sense to do so, is if we check this box here, block orientation to rail, it's going to adjust the rotation in addition to the location. So now we start to see something that works more like what we would think a rail system in a film shoot might start to look like. Right. So now we have this asset. What's nice about this asset is, like I said, if we're dealing with a much more complex move, I can again hit Alt and start dragging out some control points. I can expand my view, and I can start, elongating this track. I can make it as long as I want to. And I can use these control points in addition to these Bezier control anchor points. I can start to create a fairly complex movement. And again, it goes from 0 to 1. Right? So say I want my character to walk around my capsule, or I can maybe attach a camera to this so that I can create a tracking shot where the camera is following its path. I can do something very complex and have very smooth motion using the camera. Okay, So a couple of things we're gonna need is we would need a camera that we might want to attach to the camera. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and um, let's just grab a camera, our same camera here, and bring it in. The easiest thing for me to do is just to take that cine camera actor and make it a child of my rig rail, and you can see that hierarchy is been established. And I'm going to reset its position. Um, and I want to make sure my rig rail is at 0, 0. I'm also going to reset its rotation, right? So now my location, rotation are all 0, 0, 0. Rotation is 0 degrees, 0 degrees, 0 degrees. But that 0 degrees is relative to this plate on the camera rig rail. So now if I zoom in, right, I think if I could control, or maybe if I can alt and click on the line, I feel like there's a way I could add a spline point. In fact, I think I could just right click. Yeah, right click, add spline point, right? You can see my camera is rotating because it's a child of my rig rail. It's always going to conform to the orientation of the rig rail, right? If I click on the camera itself, it's always going to be 0, 0, 0. So again, it's conforming only to what's in the right? And now as I select the rig rail, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and pin this. You can see, I may move this up. So let's see again what the camera is viewing. And I go to my rig rail and I can start moving this, and you can see my camera is rotating along the path. It's as if like it's a camera in a car, and that car is like driving along this path. Okay. Another kind of cool thing I can do with the camera is I believe I should be able to um, have it look at something so that it's always pointing at a specific target. Let me see if I can find that. So enable look at tracking. And if I go to my video, this out, um, you can see that it's looking at something. Let's see what it's looking at. You might be looking at the origin. And you can pick something right to look at. So I'm going to place a cube in the scene. I'm going to go to my scene camera actor. I'm going to click on this eyedropper, and I'm going to pick that cube. And now you can see that that camera is pointing to the cube. If I go to the rig rail again, no matter where I am on this path, that camera is pointing to that cube. And if I move this cube up, right, you can see that camera is just going to follow. And so now if I go back to my rig rail, start going on the path, and that is, I mean, it's very mechanical. So you can do things like add camera shade, or just offset it a little bit. You can animate the cube to move around so that the cube is not actually your target, but maybe the balcony or something is your target, so that it kind of has a more realistic feel. But again, you know, a very quick and effective way of sort of getting a shot would be to, you know, assign a target to it, right? So, I mean, this is kind of already doing it, right? All we did was we brought in a rig rail, attached the camera to it, we've given it a target to look at. And now all I really need to do is just drag this camera rig rail into the scene. And I can go ahead and add. So I'm clicking on this plus button here. So plus, and anything here I can animate using keyframes. And so I want to animate the current position rail. And so in the beginning of my shot, I can add a key. And basically at the end of the shot, I'm going to turn that to 1. And so now, as I scroll through, it's going to, right? Let's go to the master sequence. I'm going to go ahead and play. And you can see that my camera is over the course of 10 seconds following the rail and focusing on the box, right? Right now, we're just looking at the camera. I'm going to unping that. We actually want to add the camera to our sequencer. I'm going to double click on this. We have our rig rail. We also need to create a camera cut. And I'm going to add a single camera, right? And I'm going to move this to the beginning and stretch this camera cut all the way to the end of the sequence, right? And so now I'm going to click on this. I'm going to this. I'm going to uncheck cinematic control, which means I'm flying this independent of the sequencer. And I'm going to do that side by side view. So I'm going to click on this option, go to layouts, the 2-pane view, right? I want my left side to be my cinematic side, and I want my right side to be just kind of free for me to fly around and with my assets around. So here, I'm going to click on the perspective. This is a cinematic viewport. And here I do want this to have cinematic control. And so uncheck that again. And so now my left side is showing me what the camera is giving me to my right side. So, oh, I want my shot to be different. I can move my box up. I could also add my grids if I wanted to for the thirds and things like that. Okay, so I mean, this is basically all you need to know in terms of what you need to do to put a camera on a rail. The other part of your homework assignment was in your animation sequence to add anything in, right? You can add this cube, for instance, right? So in my follow cam shot, I'm going to highlight the cube, and I'm actually going to add active to sequencer, and I'm going to add that cube, right? So now I have this cube, and what I can do, if you recall, the same way that I changed the transform of the camera for that nugget shot that I made in class, I can change and key this cube's location, and I can move it and key it, right? So that cube is moving, and then I can move it again, right? So if I wanted to give it a little bit of, and then add another cube, move it, add another cube, move it, add another cube, right? I can start to make camera follow a neodynamic target. And what I can do at this point is I can go to the cube's rendering and make this actor hidden in game and invisible so that that target is actually not the cube. I'm trying to focus on the balcony, but it's a little bit more of a natural movement. It's not following it so mechanically, right? So I can animate anything that's in the scene. So what could be nice is to add something with a little bit more visual interest. And so the suggestion in the class was to do a Unreal Engine mannequin, right? So let's go ahead and do that. If you click on Add, go to Add Feature or Content Pack, click on the third person, and go ahead and click Add to Project. And what that's going to do is it's going to bring you this third person folder. And in the characters, you're going to see the variety of mannequins. Right? There's a mannequin from the Unreal Engine 4 days, and there's current mannequins as well. There's Manny and Quinn. There's Manny Simple and Manny. I'm not quite sure what the difference is. I have a feeling Simple is probably going to be just fine. I'm going to grab Simple. I'm just going to drag Simple into my scene. And now we could see that we added character into our scene that we can see as this camera is moving along this track, right? I can add this character into this sequence or any other sequence for that matter. But for the sake of these, let's just go ahead and highlight Manny Simple. I'm going to click on this plus button, add after the sequence. And again, since I have it highlighted in my outliner, it's going to be available to me. I'm going to go ahead and click Manny Simple. And you can already see that Manny Simple comes with a set of animations. And so I'm just going to see if I can grab a run animation. I'm just going to take this and from beginning to end, I'm going to have this run animation. For some reason, this is not in. I think what I need to do is go into the skeleton mesh animation engagement. This yeah. um, go back to the mesh. Let's open the skeleton mesh. What I would expect to see is the animation playing here. For some reason, let's open. This is maybe a little bit beyond the scope of this class. I'm just gonna see if I can fix this really quickly, and if not, I'm gonna use a different character, and you can go ahead and use a different character to animate, just to make it much more simple. Um, maybe I'll do a follow-up if you guys really did want to use this character. And I can show you how to use it. But I think for the sake of this tutorial and just for this assignment, let's go ahead and simplify this. Let's not use this particular character. Delete it from the scene, put it in the sequencer, and delete that from the scene. What I'm going to add instead is the UE4 mannequin, which I believe is this much easier. Grab that asset there, and then go into my sequencer, and I'm going to add this character instead. I'm going to have this jog forward, and you can start to see, and this is a looping animation, so I can just stretch this out. And now you can see as I scrub through, whatever animation is here is going to be right. If you have the character running, you might want to move the character, otherwise it looks kind of weird, but any animation can be inserted into any asset as long as it's available to it in sequencer, and that character can basically perform a sequence of animations as well. Okay, I'm going to delete that. Maybe anything, right? Maybe what I'll do instead is I 3D scan myself here, and I brought myself into Mixamo, and I can show you what the process is. Obviously, it's very strange, but maybe just for fun. I've never been a break dancer, and it's nice to live that fantasy a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and show you how any character, not just necessarily a Mixamo character, can be brought into Mixamo, and you can take advantage of these animations. So I'm going to click on Upload Character. I 3D scanned myself using photogrammetry and exported an FBX of that. And I'm going to bring that asset in this upload character dialog in the Mixamo website. And let's let it load and we'll see what the asset looks like. Right, so I scan myself standing in what's called a pose with my arms kind of out, maybe 45 degrees down. And I can go ahead and in Mixamo designate position of any different traits to make sure that my bones are going to be placed in the appropriate location, right? And so now when I hit next, and then go through this process, and it's going to rig this mesh to Mixamo standard skeleton. And then what that'll allow me to do is take any animation that exists in Mixamo and apply it to my custom character. Right. So if you go into Sketchfab or any other 3D website, you'll probably see a ton of characters. And you could look for T-pose, right? There are some A-pose characters, T-pose characters. Sorry for all of the nudity, but I kind of went to the territory as well, I guess. And you could take any of these characters and you could bring them into Mixamo and animate them using Mixamo's animation, right? And you could certainly find or even make your own characters in this configuration, in this position, and then bring them into Mixamo and start animating, right? And so now I can take this rigged character and start adding animations, right? So like I'm doing the breakdance here, maybe I would do salsa dancing. Right, again, this whatever you're doing here should tie into your narrative, but you know, just to show the customization that you're capable of doing. You could certainly bring in whatever you want to, right? So I'm going to download this. I already exported my skeletal mesh, and so I'm going to select the without skin option and click on download. Right, and I'll tell you what I mean by that in a second. So I've got my salsa dancing in there now. I have in my contents the character folder. I'm going to right click, create a new folder. I'm going to call this Jason. Open that. I'm going to go into my downloads, and I've got a couple of walking, breakdancing, and salsa dancing files. But I'm going to bring in the walking animation first, right? Because this one has a skeletal mesh associated with it. So I just want to make sure that the skeletal mesh is checked. And I do want to import this animation. I'm going to hit import all. It's going to bring my 3D self into this folder, and then I can go back. I'm going to bring in the breakdancing animation, and now I just want to make sure that this skeleton is associated with the walking one skeleton, which is walking one skeleton. And import all, and now I've got my breakdancing, and bring this last one, which is salsa dancing again. I just want to make sure that skeleton is being registered as my skeleton. You can import all. I don't know why this one's taking so long. So now if I double click on the skeletal mesh, here I am. If I click on this little button here, it shows me what animations are associated with the skeletal mesh. So if I double click on the salsa dancing, I'll start salsa dancing. If I double click on the breakdance, I'll start breakdancing. Again, the mesh is fantastic because this is a photogrammetry scan. And so I would use something like this with caution. So what I would primarily use it for uh, would be something that's seen only at a distance. The other thing is the material that comes with it is a little bit on the shiny side. So I'm going to go into roughness at a constant value. I'm just going to set that value to 1. So what this means is it's fully rough, right? Again, this is the percentage value. So 100% rough, meaning there's no shininess to this at all. And hit save. We'll talk about materials later, but you can save. And okay, so now I'm going to go back into my sequencer. I've got my active selected. I can add myself to this track. And again, I have this animation option. If I click on plus, I can do salsa dancing. I'm going to salsa dance from beginning to end. So I'm playing my sequence. You can see as the camera turns around, I'm beginning to dance. Okay, so this is essentially your thing. So as long as you do that, even if it doesn't fully make sense, you're just getting in the habit of bringing things into sequence here, um, putting, making things move. Like I made that cube move. You can make the camera move. I made the camera follow the rig rail. Um, I added a skeletal mesh into my scene, and I added some animation to that mesh. And then when you're done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this render button, and I'm just going to export this video as an AVI. I'm going to capture movie. I'm going to establish a output directory. So I might just put this on desktop and so that. Um, and again, this is just a rough cut, so you don't have to change the quality settings. So I'm going to capture movie, and let's see. I can't tell if it's doing anything. Let's just go ahead and take a look at the desktop and see if there's an AVI included. No, no, okay. Mhm. I don't know what's going on. I'm just going to build lighting real quick just in case that's causing some problem. I'm not quite sure why this is a rendering scene. Saying to read from the output. I'm not quite sure why. Box right here. That folder. And ask me to save it. There you go. And so now it's gonna export it. I guess I selected the drive that I can write to, so make sure that you pick a folder that you can write to. And so now that's saved. You can see that the preview is playing, showing you doing a little dance on top of that. Open capture folder. Here's that cinematic folder I created. Here's the AVI file. So this is what you're turning for your home consumer. Okay. Since you guys aren't going to be scanning yourselves, at least not at the moment, I'm going to show you how to do this exact same thing with a character. I'm going to pick this character. Proceed with this. So whenever I pick a new character on the characters tab, I can switch that up. You can see now that same animation is being applied to this character. So I can download a series of animations for the same character. So let's maybe start with an idle animation for this person. So I'm going to pick this idle, very stiff, very aggressive. Happy idle. So you can kind of think of the mood you want and establish it using the characters properties, right? You can see that the arms here kind of like too closely stuck to the side, so I might adjust this a little bit. These arms are out a little bit more, right? This is pretty awkward too. Let's go back a little bit, move that down. And maybe I'm happy with this. I want to download this character and I want to download this idle animation. Click on the download button. Here, since I have a different character, I need to set this with skin. And what this is going to do is it's going to bring the skeletal mesh of this character in addition to this idle animation. So I'm going to hit download. And it's going to download those assets for me. And then what I can do is add other animations like a walking animation. Let's do this one. right? He's actually moving. So with walking animations, I like to select in place. And all the movement I'll control using keyframes and sequencer, right? So now I want this one, I'm going to download. But this time I'm going to check without skin. I just want the animation, so I don't need the skeleton mesh anymore. I'm going to hit download. And then I'm going to get that salsa animation. See? I think this is the one. Download, and again, I want without skin. Go ahead and click on that. So salsa one, walking one are the things that I downloaded, and an idle animation. So now I'm going to go back to the content browser, put in the character. I'm going to create a new folder, call this eraser, double click, and go to downloads folder. It was walking to idle and salsa dancing one, but I'm going to bring the idle animation first because this one has the skeleton mesh, so it's going to give me that skeleton mesh option, right? I want to make sure this is checked. I'm going to go ahead and import all. Right, it's giving me some errors. Not going to worry about that for the moment. If it looks okay, then don't worry about it. If you bring the character in and it doesn't look good, you might want to consider changing the character. Let's go back and grab, let's walk into two, right? The preview is wrong here. The idle skeleton is correct because if we look at our skeleton that's here, it's called idle. It's the correct one. So we just want to make sure that the skeleton that this animation is being associated with is the one that we just imported. And hit import all. So we have a walking animation. I'm going to drag in our salsa dancing. And again, we want that idle skeleton to be selected here. Import all. Just associating that animation to the bones of this skeleton. So let's let that import. I think this must be a more complicated animation, which is why it's taking so long to import, but hopefully it will crash the computer. Okay, so now we have our salsa dancing animation imported. So now if I double click on the skeleton and click on this animation tab, we can see that we have our salsa dancing and we have our walking and we have our idle animation. Okay. So let's close that. I'm going to just go into this material. And again, I'm going to set this reference to 1 using a constant. Save, close. And so now what I can do is I can give myself a dance partner, go into my sequencer, go into the shot, with my character highlighted, I'm gonna add this actor to the sequence, right? I could also find that actor down here, but since I have it selected, pops up at the very top, right? And here I can add that salsa dancing animation. I'm gonna move it. Now here we go. No problem. K-pop boy band music video happening, right? So I brought in another character, use the same animation. I could use a different animation, of course. And play, you can see how that looks. We practice a lot, so we're perfect unison. And then I could export that video as well, right? But it's fairly easy to bring in a 3D character and look for animations that will work within your scene. Okay, and so again, click on this render movie option. Go ahead and click capture movie, and you're going to export that AVI file. And so you should start seeing your animations, your sequences, your cinematics come to life using these techniques. Okay, hopefully that gets you going, and I'll look forward to seeing your films.